Okay.
It started.
Are we good? Okay, hello, we're live. Welcome to the Sci Fi Movie Podcast. I'm Chris Garner, joined with a very large panel today. We've got George Aldridge, Tate Niawa, Naomi Sanders, and Tom Woods. And we're back for another episode of Battle of the Brackets. How it works is we go away, we pick our picks for what today is going to be the best sci-fi movie moments of all time. And we basically argue, debate, and try not to make enemies on this show. So it's going to be a good one, good category. Good category. I picked this one because I won the last one for best sports movie moments. But this one is really tough because sci-fi is a huge category. We've got loads of great picks on this one, loads of great movies. So it's going to get very heated. But I'm ready to bring the fight. So, Tate, do you want to go over any more rules while you chomp on some?
We get 1 minute per argument per person. So say I was against Chris, I would have a minute to argue my case for why it is the best sci-fi film moment. He would have them 1 minute, and then there is 1 minute in between which we can rebuttal. So you can have that 30 seconds each way, or you can have that like split. And I just remembered I need my phone to do the timer.
I will talk for a bit. If you look at the screen, you should see the kind of picture of the best sci-fi round. So I'm going to go for the round one lineups. We've got Chris versus Tate, which is Star Wars v Gattaca. Me v Tom, which is Inception versus That's the Future. You've got Tate, I think, versus Tom. I've realised Naomi's quite far down the list, actually. Naomi's fighting whoever chose the thing at the bottom. I'm really not going to
win
this.
Chris.
Then she's fighting again against Tron, which is my pick. Underneath that, we've got Tom and I'm Your Father versus, I think, Chris's Terminator 2 Nightmare Scene. You've got my Alien pick versus Chris's music video from Inception. Then you've got in the final one, Big Everything Roads versus The Roses in the Corridor from Terminator 2. So, I mean, I'll try and keep updating this last time, but I didn't really finish this until about 20 minutes ago. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
So that's all the formalities out of the way. We're getting straight into the fight. Who is manning the clock, by the way? Because we need someone manning an exact 1 minute countdown.
A clock.
Okay, cool.
So I believe the first battle is me versus Chris, and the moments are Chris's moment is redemption from Return of the Jedi, and my moment is departure from Gattaca.
Yeah.
So both moments are the climax of their films. Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So the original Star Wars trilogy is one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Loads of great moments from all the episodes. But to me, Return of the Jedi, in this one moment that I've picked, has everything. It has the spectacle and it has the emotion. And they're the two things that make Star Wars what it is. You've got one of my personal favorite lightsaber fight of all time, the second duel between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. He's had the first fight in the previous film, and this is where he's really bringing it. And this is where Luke really toes the line of, you know, he could fall to the dark side. There's that moment where after he cuts Vader's hand off, he looks down and he sees his own robotic hand. And in that one image, you see what Luke could become. And it's just beautiful cinematography. It's got one of my favorite bits of camera work in all the entire saga. It's when you see the two fight in the background and the camera pans to the left and just follows them. Really, really simple, but really, really effective. And you have the redemption of the movie's greatest villain of all time, of Darth Vader. And you believe it, and you're there with it in the moment, and it's emotional. You've got Palpatine as well, who's hilarious.
1 minute.
Okay.
So with Gattaca is an interesting sci-fi moment because as far as sci-fi films go, it's scientifically accurate to some extent, and it kind of goes as far as to predict the future. This end scene really does tie the movies together very well. And as far as a sci-fi film goes, which some people like Gattaca, some people don't, it's not an action-based film. Yet this moment really does hammer home the point between the religious themes that it displays in the film. It's involved all the way throughout the film, is brought forward with the tests done at the end. Once they go into space, he's been pretending to be someone else. It's a mystery in there. And yet, in a single moment, you have him being caught out by someone who knew all along what was happening. And then you have the departure itself, where he goes off into space after all of the trials and tribulations that he's gone through. And he's finally born again, just as his alternate character, the person who he's taken over the life of, passes away. So that's why 1 minute. We have 30 seconds left each. Go, Chris.
Okay, straight away. If we're talking themes as well on this, because I kind of just went into the details of it, you've got destiny and fate. You've got a father and son moment, one of the best father and son moments in any film. You've got good versus evil. You've got all these themes that are working together with beautiful cinematography, gorgeous score by John Williams, one of the best pieces of the score in the entire movie. And just with Vader, like in that one shot, and I'm not going with the Blu-ray version where they add the no-in. I'm going with the original version where he's looking back at Luke and back at the Emperor,
And stop.
you see everything.
Well, let's be honest here. That isn't the best Star Wars moment, even slightly. Even you wanted Binary Sunset as your favorite moment. I wouldn't even put that up there as the best moment.
There's more going on in this.
Good moments from Star Wars, and yet there is one moment that stands out to me as far as sci-fi films, and Gattaca is close to my heart, I have to admit it. But it is a phenomenal, moving moment. It made me rethink about science and science fiction films, while Star Wars, you'd seen it before in previous films. And that's it.
Going to kickstart.
Go for it.
I'm really hard not to be biased because Chris did pick the best Star Wars moment. And I think by talking about the film in terms of the score, the whole Luke, his decisions, the shadowing, vaguely getting the redemption bit in. I know we had a lot to cover, which you didn't really get into it. Whereas Tate made a very good argument, Gattaca, very, very different films, and talked more about the science aspect of science fiction. And they made a very good argument about it, talking about the different themes. I'm sorry if you can hear a Hoover, someone's doing outside my room. So, non-biasedly, I think Chris made the best point about the entirety of the moment. And with Tate's downside was him saying it was a more of an interesting moment than a great moment, whereas Chris spoke about it being great and the pinnacle of the films. So Chris has got my vote.
Thanks, man.
Naomi or Tom, either of you?
Do you want to go first, Tom?
No, go for it.
Okay. This is kind of a little bit difficult because I haven't really seen Gattaca, but I do. Jedi, to be honest, it's my favorite out of the whole of the Star Wars films. I know not many people like it, but I really love it. Base it more on the arguments. However, I do feel that Chris argued a little bit better for his case. I know I'm just up with like loads of Star Wars things, but I'm just going to go with it, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chris wins this round. I do want to know what Tom would have picked. I'm assuming it would be Star Wars.
Yes, it would have been. Yeah, I just think, although I really like Gattaca is kind of one of the best thematic films you'll ever see. I do think the points you raised in it didn't quite sell it enough, because it is a really good sort of thematic bit in the film, but I think Chris sold it just a tad more.
So Chris goes through to the next round, and we move on to fight number 2, Inception hallway fight scene versus the Back to the Future 88 miles per hour. So, person going
I'm not even fighting in this one, and it feels tense.
First is Inception hallway fight scene is going first. Go.
So with Inception, you've got one of the best sci-fi films for the last few years, one of my favourite films of all time. And in the hallway fight scene, it's not just what I'm going to talk about the story first, and I go into the production of it. The fact that you've got four layers. I'm not going to go into details. You will know this. And currently, they're in a car, and it's spinning over. It's kind of drove on the side of a cliff. So what Nolan does by reflecting it into the next part, they're spinning. They're following the gravity of the next layer. So you've already got this brilliant, believable bit. But then you've got a fight scene in no gravity, which is just mental. You've got the incredible hands in the score. You've got great cinematography from Wally Pfister. And then the fight itself, they're on a rotating set, which is just incredible that they filmed it, that it wasn't CGI in a green screen room. So there's so much production meaning to it. And it's just phenomenal. And then what it offers to the film as well in the scene, there is in the third layer in the snow mountain of the avalanche happening. Saying, no, sorry, forget that. The avalanche didn't happen. That's later on. But back to the hallway fight. It's just...
That's 1 minute gone. Next person.
Okay, right. So, Back to the Future. When you think of Back to the Future, the first film, what do you think of? We're going to see some serious shit. This is probably the most iconic moment out of the entirety of that first film. And I know you could pick loads more, but for time this is it. In terms of, I mean, it doesn't have any themes to it. You could argue that Doc is contemplating suicide or whatever, but you know, it's funny, it's gripping. It has some amazing special effects, especially when the flames come and you see the license plate spin. It's great, and that is purely what I think of when I think of Back to the Future. I think the performances are really good in it. I think I'm so lost in my wording.
And
but
that is a minute. Next argument, George.
You said it's got great special effects. It was great at the time. It's very updated now, the card track, and you can't compare the special effects of Back to the Future with the practical effects of a set spinning round on a gigantic crane with two blokes having a fight in the middle of this. And it is a great moment, Back to the Future, but to me personally, the most iconic moment is the last line of the film and the finale at the disco, not pointing back to Inception. It's one of the most phenomenal scenes in cinema, and I just don't know how on earth this speaks to the film that he somehow came up with the idea of that and executed it perfectly. And there's so much credit involved, but just the cinematography on is
Stop.
Yeah, but you say that it has a rotating set. Rotating sets have been in film for countless years. It's not original in the sense that it's, you know, I mean, he rotated the entire set, great, but so did Stanley Kubrick. You know, it's not that. It's not like completely genius. I think if you're going for sheer volume of how iconic the moment is, if you think of Back to the Future, you can watch this scene. It will tell you the entirety of the story in just one tiny bit.
Am I allowed to say anything more? Am I?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
Okay, can I go first?
Yeah, go for it, because I'm still making my mind up.
It was going to be George all the way through that argument, and then Tom said about the Stanley Kubrick rotating set, and as soon as he said, "Oh, rotating set," I immediately thought of the scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey of the guy running with the rotating set, and it takes away your entire argument idea of it being landmarking, whilst Tom went forward with the moment being iconic and setting like being set in stone in film history. So I'm gonna have to go with Tom.
Oh God's sake, I was losing that all the way through. That. I'll admit.
Oh, Naomi, I think you're going to have to take this one, and then I'll chip in at the end because I still haven't made my mind up.
Okay, I agree with Tate. George pretty much had the argument until Tom said loads of people had used rotating sets, and the one that I thought in my head wasn't necessarily sci-fi. It was actually just High School Musical 3, where they actually have a moment of rotating sets. I know it's not sci-fi, but still, it's just not necessarily having something rotating is necessarily going to be sci-fi. And yes, I would argue that there could be a better Back to the Future moment that you could pick to be the best sci-fi moment, but out of the two, I'm going to have to go with.
Wow.
Chris?
See, this is where I'm torn, because that moment in Inception, although I've got another moment from Inception coming up in my list later on, is one of the standout bits from that film, and it truly is an absolute spectacle to watch, and all the production that went into it, the score as well. If you think of Inception, that's immediately the moment you think of. And Back to the Future, it is such a great film. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and it has so many good bits in it. As George said, there's loads of bits you think of, like the the 50s scene or the Johnny Be Good. There's loads of moments in that film, but I do think that Tom's scene does capture that mystery and that science fiction element of Back to the Future, and it introduces one of the greatest cars in cinema history, which is the DeLorean. So I guess I'd probably have to go with Tom on that one.
Oh God.
Tom through in flying colours.
Yeah. That was a tough one,
Okay,
though. That was
now
really
we
tough.
move on to.
I was not expecting that.
We move on to fight number 3,
Yeah.
and I'm really sorry, Naomi, but you're still not fighting. In this fight, it is Tears in Rain from Blade Runner versus Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
There's
Sound one.
There's no contest. There's just no
And
contest.
Tom doesn't even want to argue this one, so I'm going to start the timer on Tom. Go. Give me praise.
Right. So This is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I mean, if you're going for alien communication scenes, this is probably one of the greatest examples of how unconventional it is. You get synthesizers, and it's a tonal element to the communication. You have a team of scientists. You have music. It's embedded in its music. And I think in terms of its sheer genius, I think it turns regular conventions of the sort of alien communication from various other films previous to that and turns it on its head. So you expect sort of little green men. I know that happens sort of later on in the clip, but in terms of how they communicate, they don't like plug a bit of metal into your brain. God, there we go.
Okay, Tears in Rain, as far as Blade Runner, is undoubtedly one of the best sci-fi films of all time, if not the best. This scene alone has music on its side, cinematography on its side, acting performances on its side. It has the iconicness on its side that people will quote even a tiny bit of this speech that was made at any point. Like, I've heard people who don't even watch sci-fi films quote this scene. And you've got one of the greatest actors of all time in Harrison Ford, and like his performance as a person who at the moment you think he is human, and he's up against a person who you assume to be an android, you assume to be not human, and yet it reflects humanity in every sense of the word during the soliloquy. You've got the Tears in Rain speech just anchoring down towards the end of the film and making you question everything that you had seen in that film up until that point. This is the greatest sci-fi film moment of all time, and that's my 30 seconds.
It is a beautiful moment. However, I would say for sheer innovation and for sort of the genius of the scene, you have to go with Close Encounters. I know it's not many people's favorite film, but I think it speaks volumes as to sort of how Steven Spielberg crafts and directs a scene, and sort of brings everything, especially the an element of music and tone into his films. And I think that's why you should really pick it.
Tears in Rain scene is unique, whilst I'm not going to lie, but like the Close Encounters scene, it isn't the most iconic image of the film. It's probably the most iconic scene, but when I think of the film, I think of the little boy stood at his doorstep with the lights blaring towards him. And with this scene, it changed cinema. Even though this film critically, well, not critically flopped, but commercially flopped, this is a cult classic, and people go back to it again and again and again when referring to sci-fi moments. And stop. Who wants to go first?
Right.
I'll chip in first on this one. Tom, first off, I know how difficult that was for you because I know how much you absolutely adore Blade Runner.
That was going to be my first pick, but then Tate, the bastard, stole it.
Actually, you got a lot of your picks stolen, didn't you, if I remember rightly? Okay, this is where I fall on it. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a movie I don't particularly care for, but I think it's more iconic in the two scenes that both Tate mentioned with the boy at the doorway and also the one where they communicate with the aliens. And it is a beautiful moment. The score from John Williams, again, always just brilliant with his music. However, with Blade Runner, that is the final moments of a character. And whilst Close Encounters of the Third Kind is very grandiose and it is very beautiful and you kind of are in awe of it as you are with the characters, you know, I forgot his name. God, what's the actor's name? Tears in Rain. Rutger Hauer. Jesus. I get that. He just holds your attention with that whole monologue, and it is the most iconic piece of dialogue from the entire movie. Beautiful score by Vangelis in the background to accompany it, so I'm going to go with Tate on this one.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go?
Go for it, George.
It's hard to talk about the arguments in this because it's the easiest argument that Tate could make, that it genuinely is one of the best scenes. So Tom put up a good fight. I do like the senior picks, and he fought it well, but there's Tate, you know, it's Blade Runner. Not just because of that, but it's, I mean, you'll know yourself. I mean, your picture in this is a Blade Runner thing.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say Tate because that's
it was a losing fight. Anyway.
The fact that you started your fight by saying this is no battle. Where would you have gone?
I would have gone for you, Tate, as well, mostly because I got part of my lectures. I got to see just the progression between the original cut and director's cuts, like the different director's cut of the scene. And each time it added a lot more, and it was just very more poignant and a lot more emotional with it. So yes, the Close Encounters scene is very good, but
Blade Runner goes through. There hasn't been has there been a split decision yet? I don't think so.
No, it's all good. Why watches?
It's all going in one direction. Let's see whether that changes with the Thing. Is it the blood test scene? I want to say in the Thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Blood test scene in the Thing versus flying through space in Wall-E. Naomi, you get to fight.
You better bring it.
But Chris is going first on this one, I believe.
I'm gonna try to.
Okay, Chris, you ready to go?
Yeah, sure am.
Go.
Right, okay. John Carpenter's The Thing is one of the best sci-fi horror movies ever made, and we're talking about very grand space epics and everything like that, but I think we need to look at the horror side as well, because it is a great body horror film. And not just is it with all the aliens and the great practical effects in there, what's great about The Thing is the paranoia of the characters and the characters we follow throughout. And this, to me, there are loads of great scenes in The Thing. It's one of my favorite films ever made, but this scene is one of the tensest films I think I've ever seen in cinema. It's the scene where they're all sitting down and McCready's at the front and he's got all their blood and he's putting a lit rod in it, and if it jumps up, it's the Thing. And even when me and Tate did we watched it not too long ago, and I've seen that film countless times, and you can watch that film again and again and again, and every time you are still questioning which one is a Thing at which point in the film. And it's the moment where you, as a viewer, are finding out as you are with the characters. And it's tense, and it's gory, and it's graphic. With Wall-E, it's a very, very beautiful animated scene. I'm not going to question that. Damn it. Hyping on The Thing too much.
Okay. So with Wall-E, although we have been talking about great sci-fi films, Wall-E is one of those films which is great in sci-fi, but it doesn't necessarily have to be so out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be so... It can just be simply two characters progressing in character development and just a relationship with each other. And this scene just definitely shows it. It shows how it can grow without much dialogue. I think the great thing about Wall-E is that it doesn't usually overuse dialogue a lot. Because something like The Thing could necessarily have loads of tense moments, but it could also need a lot of exposition for everything. And Wall-E does have a tiny bits of exposition, but they're just kind of more spaced out differently. Excuse me, my voice is going. But it's just a great moment just to see the relationship between Eve and Wall-E just as they're flying through space. And the score is absolutely fantastic. I cannot... Brilliant.
As I was about to say,
go.
Okay, to compare it to Wall-E, it is a great moment in the film. It is a very beautiful moment, but I think The Thing has a lot more going in it. There's a lot more character-driven moments in this film. It's the tension. It's almost like they're playing Russian roulette and narrowing it down. It's like a murder mystery. It's like the end of a film, like in Poirot or something, where you're finding out who the culprits are. And it's fascinating to watch, and they're not all going to get out of it. And these characters that we've come to love, we are going to see that they are actually being taken over the Thing and have got to be burned alive to be killed. And the moment in Wall-E, as I said, is beautiful, but I think there are a lot of other moments in Wall-E.
You said a very important thing, which is that pretty much majority of them aren't going to make it out alive. That's the thing. With Wall-E, you never really know what's going to happen. You never really know what this is, and Eve is excited because she found the plant, and that's why they have this whole great dance moment. You don't know the significance of the plant necessarily. You don't know why beforehand, and that just leads to this moment of calmness that you need. Yes, I'm sure The Thing is a great film. My cousin kept telling me about it, but he just...
Do you want me to start?
Go on, George.
So, I'm not the biggest fan of Wall-E. I do love the first 30 minutes. But after that, it's basically like the poor man's 2001. But anyway, Chris made a good point with The Thing. However, I didn't think I'd vote, but Naomi kind of defeated him and said, "You know that not everyone's going to make that alive," and she kind of, I think she in the last 30 seconds she's kind of outdone Chris by explaining, you know, the scene, that scene itself, and what's come before it, and what leads into it. Whereas the thing's very much like, you know exactly what's going to happen. So I think argument-wise that Naomi's won this. I really didn't think I'd vote for Wally, but I have. So yeah, that's
It is a nice moment.
maybe it's the first one.
Tom?
Okay, so this is really tough because both films are absolutely brilliant, and I will argue with you to the end of time, George, about how not 2001 Wally is.
Isn't the villain basically HAL 9000 the first steering wheel?
But it's Sigourney Weaver, so come on. I mean, where do I even start? The Thing is one of the best, like as Chris said, one of the best body horror science fiction films out there. And John Carpenter really delves into the psyche of most of his characters in that film, and puts his audience in a position to question who is the Thing. And going back to it, you don't really know at what point people get to be the Thing. However, and I really like that scene in Wall-E, mainly due to the fact how tender it is. And you're talking about a big bombastic sort of computer animated feature with all these spectacular, dazzling effects. It's a tender, quiet moment in the deep space, and I think it really works, and it's really poignant and adds a lot of depth to characters that don't say that much to each other. And I think using your argument, Chris, in the Star Wars, saying how it's just looks, you can tell an awful lot just by looking, just by seeing the emotion of these two computers. So with that, I'm going to have to go with the more tender of the two, which is obviously The Thing. No, but it'll have to be Wall-E.
Oh, you soppy bastard. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
A horror film with a Disney film. This is showing my film study skills.
I mean, that the Thing is just like really, it gets you going.
Chris.
Yeah.
The thing is, as you're aware, my favorite horror film of any sort of all time, and is in my top 10 films of all time.
The only horror film you've ever seen.
Yeah, probably. Naomi kind of completely outpunched you though on the arguments.
Yeah, she did.
And
she did.
It was for sci-fi moments. As far as science fiction goes, it doesn't have to always be action. I know your moment was very tense, but the calm was just. It mellowed out the Thing moment, you know?
Yeah.
Being 3-0 again.
And you know how much I love animated films, so you know what? I'm not even mad, because Wall-E is a great movie.
It's Pixar. How can you fault with Pixar?
If they make Cars 2, Good Dinosaur, Brave, there's a few.
Yeah.
Right.
Brave
Can I give you guys a quick update? If you guys like,
yes, update the bracket for us. We are halfway through round one.
We're halfway through round one, and if you look at my screen in the next 5 seconds, not my screen, everyone should see it now. We are like halfway through the round one. So with the quarterfinals, we've got Vader versus Back to the Future, Tears in the Rain v Wall-E, and we're about to commence on the other half of round one. So yeah.
And we start the other half of round one with Welcome to Jurassic Park versus the entire Tron game sequence from Tron Legacy. So the first person up is Naomi with the Jurassic Park moment. Are you ready?
Okay.
Go.
So, itself is a really good film, but this moment is just a standout. First of all, because it's one of the first films to really show really good CGI, and it's just a perfect way to show it, because you have all the characters standing up, looking gasping, basically just for trailer shots, and then you actually see it, and you're like, is that even real? Because, like I said, this is probably one of the first times you saw computer-generated imagery in a very good, and the way that just Richard Attenborough, bless his soul, just goes up and is like, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." John Williams' score blaring over. You see the whole of the wilderness with all these dinosaurs that look so realistic, and you're just blown away by your feeling with the characters of just like, can this be real? Can this be in real life? It's just that amazing moment that I think people of all ages will look and just be like,
and go.
Yeah, so before I talk about this is the greatest sci-fi moment, and then this entirety of the games takes place inside a computer, which is sci-fi in itself. There was no comment about Jurassic Park being any sci-fi, any moment. It was good CGI. Did you see the slow-mo shot of them pulling out the light cycle, driving around the track in full CGI suits? So yeah, Jurassic Park is groundbreaking. It wasn't great because that scene is horrifically outdated when you watch that today. Welcome to Jurassic Park. It's so outdated, and it was great at the time. But as much of the credit on CGI in Jurassic Park is the credit to the animatronic department as well. But anyway, back to Tron Legacy. You've got the Disc Wars. It's a different type. We had the reason I picked this over the first Tron is because I think you see more sci-fi in the Tron Legacy games than you do in the original one. You start off with Disc Wars, where there's a great battle between them all. You've got Rinsler, who's Tron in disguise, #spoiler, who's fighting them, and he finds out that Sam's a user, uses the human. I don't know why I'm getting this Tron lore, but I am.
And stop. Okay. And rebuttal, go.
basically, I would have said that you should have picked the original Tron over this one, because out of the landmarks of everything with the Tron, I would say the original has a lot more, because it has a lot more the technology and just showing it and originality with it, whilst this one, it was done in 2011. We got used to computer generated imagery. We got used to this. This is the first time we ever saw it here in Jurassic Park.
And George, go.
I didn't pick the first Tron film because it was first. This isn't the first sci-fi moment of all time. It's the greatest moment of all time. I love both Tron films. I'm a massive Tron fan. I've got Tron posters. These scenes are far better than the original one. Just because it's first and it's more iconic to some doesn't mean it's better. The light cycle scene is gripping, and this was groundbreaking technology of having Jeff Bridges play his younger self in the scene, CGI'd, which films since that have started taking. Disney followed it. They did it on Ant-Man using the same technology that Tron Legacy used. Yeah,
okay.
I don't want to go first on this one. Tom can go.
Yeah.
Or you take.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
fine. Okay.
So, who's go first?
Wait, is it me or Tom? Tom, you go first.
Okay, right. I'm just gonna have to say, George, the special effects, whilst sometimes can look very impressive, Jeff Bridges, the visual effects on his face were laughable at best.
Yes, but I'm not defending it, but it was great at the time. It hadn't been done before.
Plus,
you can say Jurassic Park's laughable on the ones with the big necks.
Plus, it is way too long a scene. It is way too long a scene, and in terms of how memorable it is, I remember absolutely nothing about Tron Legacy because it was a shocking piece of turd. But however, I will grant you. I mean, you did argue that very well. But I think I do have to go with my gut, which is Jurassic Park, mainly due to the fact that not only is it a great spectacle, but it also introduces you to the world in which these characters inhabit, these and the sort of adventure they're going to go on. Yeah, and those special effects visual effects in Jurassic Park still hold up today. In fact, I would say they're primarily better than Tron Legacy, just for the sheer sort of volume. You don't see much of them, and that's why it works.
If I'm going second, my problem with the Jurassic Park moment is think of it as a science fiction film. I think of it as
Why don't you think of it is pure? It is great science
I know.
fiction.
I know
If
it's.
we're arguing about what's science fiction and what's not, we could say a whole thing about whether Star Wars is fantasy.
Star Wars is science
Yeah, no.
description.
Star Wars is science fiction.
There's a star and there's wars. Enough said.
I have a feeling that the only reason why I'm thinking that is because it's up against this moment, which is on the other end of the spectrum of sci-fi, where it actually goes overboard in your face science fiction.
Which is what I meant.
Here's the thing, though. George, I like Tron Legacy. It's one of my guilty pleasure films. However, I would prefer to listen to the soundtrack than watch the film itself. And that is a problem that I do have with the film, and especially the moment. This is probably the best moment in the film other than the nightclub fight. But, like, once again, the Welcome to Jurassic World is just stupidly iconic.
Park. Don't mention Jurassic World ever.
Do not ever think of Jurassic World.
Film. Come on. Welcome to Jurassic Park. Sorry. It's iconic. It's timeless. It's won this battle.
Damn, I'm sorry, George.
Why only got 2? This is an improvement from last time, I think. No.
Chris, which way would you have gone?
This is really tough because whilst that moment from Jurassic Park is a fantastic moment, it's a very moving moment, and that's mostly down to the score. And as you said, like that was the first time CGI came in. I think that I would have gone with George's argument more with that Tron is completely sci-fi. Like you get thrown into this computer world. Light cycles are one of the coolest things ever invented in any movie. I don't care what anyone says. And you know, we talk about effects, but I think effects, you can just throw them to the wayside because they're constantly getting better. Sometimes they look better in older films because they blended it more with practical stuff. But I think that Tron is truly just like a visually movie, and it is pure sci-fi. And it's I'd probably have gone with Tron, but I don't know because I like Jurassic Park as well. I guess I'd go with Tron because it looks so cool. I don't know. It was a tough one. My vote doesn't count anyway. Jurassic Park went through.
Moving on
Welcome
to the next battle.
Contemporary politics.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest battle of the first round. I'm not going to lie. This is the one which I was looking forward to listening to. Darth Vader's I Am Your Father moment versus Terminator 2 Judgment Day's Apocalypse.
Oh, fuck. Who's going first?
Darth Vader is going first.
Oh,
so, are you ready? Go.
Okay, so of all the moments in here, this one is by far the best, due to the fact that it takes all the themes of oh Christ, I've lost my train of thought. This is the worst thing to happen.
Yes.
Okay, essentially, what I'm trying to get at is it's a great piece of. Oh, I'm so lost. Honestly, oh my God, my brain's just. I've just had a brain fart.
Good.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's just. I've just gone blank, mind blank.
Is that a forfeit?
Tom has thrown the
Thrown it away.
No, don't throw it. I wanted to
don't throw
argue
it.
for this.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Give him 20 seconds. Give him 20 seconds.
Do you want me to fight for him?
No.
I'm giving him 20
Okay,
seconds.
right. Okay.
I've added on 15
Essentially,
seconds.
you get. Oh, pissing hell!
Come up. It is one of the greatest sci-fi moments. I agree with you. Go.
Yeah, I know you keep saying it definitely is. I think.
And stop.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Dude, what the fuck happened?
Sorry, I just had a.
Take,
Oh my
take.
God.
Chris,
Can I
1
like,
minute,
change
go.
my pick and just like hype that moment in Empire Strikes Back now because it's so good?
Go for it.
What, Empire or what? I don't know.
Then that's basically committing suicide because at the moment you've got no argument. Tom's got no argument.
I have an argument. I have an argument. I'm just really depressed
You've got
about
45 seconds.
Okay,
left, dude.
right.
You've got
Okay,
40
okay,
seconds.
okay. Terminator 2 is one of the greatest sci-fi movies and one of the greatest action movie moments. And why it's one of the greatest action films as well is because you have all this spectacle, but you also have the character. And Sarah Connor, I mean, what a transformation between the first Terminator film into this second one. And this is really what the crux of the entire story is about. This is the stakes of what could happen with Judgment Day, and we get to see it firsthand. Yes, it's a nightmare sequence, but it is very real, and it's very real to us when we watch it now. And it's even more scary by the fact that this is still a possibility in our today's world. I mean, nuclear war is still a thing, and the tensions across the globe, this could still be a thing. And when we see people turn to ash, and you've got Sarah Connor just banging on the fence screaming.
30 seconds, Tom, go.
Right, what it means for the entirety of the next movie is the implications of sort of Luke Skywalker's overall destiny. And what I go back to is the choice he makes at the end of that sequence, where he decides to throw himself off rather than facing the truth of the situation. And you know, I've just thought of a million things I can say, not all in 30 seconds. The music is good. The James Earl Jones, fantastic. I fucked that one up so bad.
Chris, go.
When you talk about settle for the character, this is the one moment which propels Sarah Connor to go after Miles Dyson in the rest of the film. And it's also harkening back to the first film as well, where she's first warned about it. And the only things of Judgment Day we've really seen up until this point is the fallout of it. We've seen the ash-covered ground, the skull-covered ground with the sci-fi warfare. But this is very real, happening in sort of modern day at the time that film was made. And it is disturbing. It's nightmarish. Exactly, it is nightmarish. It is a nightmare of the Sarah Connor character.
Jesus.
I'm just going to go ahead and say Chris.
Yeah.
Take the vote.
Tom, what happened? What happened?
Honestly,
Empire, man, Empire.
I know.
Biggest spoilers, biggest plot twist in the whole of film.
I know, but I had all this. I watched it before we recorded, like when I went away and just it all this stuff, brain fart and just meltdown, and oh my god, I shouldn't even review films anymore. That's it. I quit. See you later. If I can't argue,
does this make
strikes back? It's what is the point of living?
The question is now, does this make me the #1 odds favorite?
I don't know.
I'm so disappointed. Like
Tom screwed up on what I thought was going to win.
Whoever in the comments, I deserve whatever punishment I get thrown, because geez, I would absolutely tear myself.
People in the comments, we need forfeits, which we will do at the start of the next battle for Tom.
Oh my god, Tom!
Argue that there was a science fiction available.
I'm sorry, that was
Tom.
That was dreadful.
Tom, we're gonna find this part of the stream. We're gonna take the chunk of it, just this one battle, and we're gonna re-upload it so that you can experience it over and over again.
Oh no, I'll have nightmares about it.
On the internet, isn't that brilliant?
Fucking hell! I mean, this is stuff that becomes a viral video and doesn't know anything about Star Wars.
I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely dreading that round. I didn't think I was going to make it out of that one alive, but wow. My god.
Moving on to the next round, we've got the alien chestburster scene versus Inception ending.
Jesus.
Unusual choice, Chris.
Are you ready? Fuck you, okay?
Wait, who has the chestburster scene?
Me.
George.
Okay, and George, you're going first. Go.
So I can't chestburster scene. You've got one of the most iconic sci-fi villains of all time in one of the scariest films to me. Well, not scary, but when I was younger, when I seen it was horrific. And you've got the scene where the horror is born, and it rips out the skin. You all know it. It's so iconic. But it's not that. It's the performance of the people around them that weren't aware of what was going to happen. They knew something bad was going to happen, but they were never told about the chestburster. So there's John Hurt on the table, and it's the reactions of the crew, which is priceless, which makes it so much more believable. And Ridley's got so much credit for this moment, because without their reactions to it, I think if they'd have known beforehand, it would still be a good scene, but it wouldn't be as great as it was. So it's the horrifyingness of it. And look what it gives birth to. It then spawns the franchise, and we can get into details because obviously it's the alien scene, but it's just John Hurt. Imagine acting that you've been, a thing getting ripped out of your stomach, tensioning back and forth, blood splattering all over the people.
And stop, Chris. Your go. Go.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so Inception, one of my favorite movie moments of all time, and why this is a great moment, I would say, over the corridor spin, which we talked about earlier, is that it is the finale to Cobb's character. I mean, we've gone through him throughout the whole film, dealing with his wife, and he finally lets her go. And it's in those final moments of the movie, and I'm going from the plane sequence, we get this really lovely shot where he's walking through the airport lobby and he's seeing all the crew he's worked with, and it's just knowing glances to each of them. It's a really, really nice emotional wrap up to it. And then the sci-fi moment where it comes in is where he gets back to his children, the people he's been fighting for to get back to. The whole way through the movie, he finally gets there. And like the entire theme of the movie is planting ideas in your head and you're not sure if you're in reality or not, that spinning top and when it cuts to black is one of the best movie endings of all time. It's got the song Time by Hans Zimmer, which is one of my favorite songs to any film. It's absolutely just beautiful piece of music. And what's so great about that moment is it fuck it. I've got nothing.
Obviously, everyone knows I love Inception, I love Hans Zimmer. It's a very good moment. It's a fantastic, ambiguous ending to a film, but one of the greatest science fiction moments of all time, I think we all know, is not that. And it's a better music video than it is a moment, which says a lot about the song. But going back to the Alien, you just can't compare the birth of the Alien. It's called Alien. That's as sci-fi as it's going to get.
Stop.
Okay, Alien.
Chris, go.
Alien is a very gory moment. It is a very shocking moment. But what's great about the Inception ending for sci-fi is that it does exactly what the theme has been throughout the whole film. As an audience member, it plants that idea into your mind, which makes you question whether the ending is real or if it is in fact a dream. And I think that's what transcends it more as a great moment, because it leaves that lasting impact with the viewer rather than just a very shocking old chest burster. And then the Xenomorph is much more iconic to the Alien franchise anyway, I would say. And that's why it's gone on into all the sequels and Aliens where they throw loads
And stop. Shit. That was a strong finish.
You hurt me with that music video comment, man. That's harsh.
I love Inception.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go first. This is a bit like a reverse of before. George, you were winning all the way through that, and then because you weren't willing to put the beef too hard on Inception as a film. You said it was a music video, yes, but everyone could say that. You could say that about any musical moment in a film. But Chris talking about how it left a lasting impact and really kind of driving home the message of the film, whilst Alien really being towards the start of the film, start of the franchise, it's a difficult call. I'd say that the would be Alien, but Chris argued better in those final 30 seconds than either of you did in the previous minute each, so I'm going to put Chris through on this one.
I have no idea how I managed that, because that pick for Inception was literally last minute, and I hated my pick for choosing it. Thank you.
Tom, actually, let's ask Tom last, because he knows nothing about sci-fi, so Naomi.
Thanks very much.
Shall I go? Oh. There we go. I'm going to pick the Alien as one of my choices, so thank you, George, for feeling it. But I do like your argument for Inception. I do love Time by Hans Zimmer. Almost play it on book that I got of film and music. Regardless, the most iconic moment from that film, I would argue that there's a hard-hitting more moments with the development between Leonardo DiCaprio's character. And your argument saying that the Xenomorph is a lot more iconic than this, I would say no, because the main Alien is this moment and Get Away From Her, You Bitch, in the second one. So I'm gonna go with George.
That's fair. That's
Split
fair.
decision.
Go on, Tom. It all rides on you.
Fuck.
Speak this time.
I mean, I just this is one of my favorite films of all time, Alien, and I really don't want to say it. I really don't. But I think Chris argued the case for the best moment.
Tom, you break it up.
I was going to say, is his internet?
No, I'm still here. Am I still here?
Yeah, you are still here.
Still
Yeah.
here. You broke up a second there.
Okay, so what I was saying was, yes, Alien. That scene is great. It is brilliant, gory, and just the sheer shock on everyone's faces is fantastic, and the way it's directed as well. I mean, Ridley Scott's a genius. However, I can't believe I'm saying this because Alien is one of my favorite films of all time, but I think Chris argued the case for Inception far better than George did on Alien, and whilst not being the best, like I'll agree, it's a shocking moment to pick, Chris. It really is.
It is.
It really
I could have
is.
picked anything other than that.
Yeah, but you argued it really well.
Jesus, how the hell did that happen?
It's
Ridley Scott Alien.
It's going to be just the worst of it out of yours, and it's just going to be catapulted
Right?
to the...
I thought that was going to be a walkaway for George on that one.
I don't mind. I love Inception.
I know, but Alien's a much better sci-fi moment than the moment I picked.
I know.
Wow.
But
I'm shocked.
Who even knows,
Okay.
honestly.
So
Jesus.
one more battle in the first round, and that is Back to the Future, where we're going. We don't need roads versus the Terminator Roses scene.
Ooh.
Oh,
So I'm going first, and I'm going to start the timer now. Okay, so let's talk about Back to the Future's end scene. First of all, you've got Marty McFly finally getting back to present day. He wakes up, and the future's changed for him. That is already an amazing sci-fi moment. The fact that this film franchise at the time, look, you can change the future, and it sets up for the next film with that. I don't like sequel baiting, but this did it in the best way possible. And as far as sci-fi moments, again, you thinking, oh God, what's happened to Doc? Where's he gone? He pulls up with a brand new DeLorean, which now runs on food, which is an amazing invention. And in fact, people have been trying to make those kind of cars that run on biofuels and foods ever since that film has come out. After all of that, to top it off, you have an iconic moment with the car, the second one, in fact, of the film, where the car says, where we're going, we don't need roads, and the car just lifts up into the sky and flies towards the screen, and bang, end of film. Amazing finish. And that's my minute. Naomi?
oh
Go.
gosh. Well, this again is a very tense moment because this is a sequel, but it's a very good sequel. But you would know that Arnold Schwarzenegger has been out for the kill. And so with this moment, you don't know if it's going to be... You're thinking, like, is the Arnie Terminator going to be the one that's killing John Connor? Or is it going to be this new one, Patrick Stewart, who blends in very well in his surroundings? He seems into the crowd whilst Arnie sits out like a sore thumb. But once the guns go off and then you see the effect that it has on the T-1000, that is just an amazing effect still today, and it's because of its blend between computer-generated imagery and, like, they also used a load of motion capture for it. So it's still fantastic in its own right. But I think it's just that build-up between, like, who is the actual Terminator and who is the one that's safe.
My 30 seconds now, and I'm not going to lie, but you watch the trailer for Terminator 2, and it tells you that Arnie is the good guy now. Your entire says, oh, Arnie's the good guy now. And not only that, but it's not really a sci-fi moment. Sure, it's got good practical effects in there, but it's an action scene. It's basically walking towards each other in the hallway. They shoot at each other. He protects him. They get away. Whilst with the Back to the Future moment, it's a flying car. It's a flying car. That's my argument. Your 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, but your point, it's a flying car. That's all it is. I mean, this future is very much definitely more on the dystopian side of how terrible it is. And I accidentally said Patrick Stewart, so I meant Robert Patrick. But still, that's just so very, very scary. I will admit that I may some goofs here. But Jurassic Park.
And stop.
I can't talk today, honestly.
Can I go first on this
Who
one?
wants to go first? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Tate, you absolutely had me because that is one of the greatest moments from Back to the Future. However, you did make a comment which kind of annoyed me a little bit at the end. You talked about Terminator 2, like sequel baiting and the whole thing with sequels. Your moment is one of the most archetypal sequel baiting moments in film history. I think Back to the Future.
Yeah, but we love the sequels.
I do. I like Back to the Future 2. I know Tom hates Back to the Future 2. But I love the third one as well.
And we don't talk about Back to the Future 3.
But I've always said with movies, I think they're better if they're self-contained. And the moment at the end of Back to the Future, it's like, oh, great. Well, now you have to put on Back to the Future 2. It's kind of linking moment into the other one so far so that they recreate that moment at the beginning of Back to the Future 2 itself. The moment in Terminator 2, and I know I'm biased because I love that movie, but that is the first moment where the T-1000 and the Terminator face down, and it's beautiful cinematography in that scene with the whole roses falling to the floor and Arnold pulling out the shotgun. And it is kind of a nice character moment to see that shift in Arnie's character from the murderous killer machine in the first one to the protector. And it's a great opening fight between the characters, and that sets up for the rest of the movie. So I'm going to have to go with Naomi's pick on this one.
Tom, do you want me to?
You pretty much did half of the arguing for me with your Sarah Connor.
Yeah, based on the arguments, Chris.
Yeah, no, that was based on the arguments. That absolutely was based on the arguments. You had me until the sequel bait.
Based on the arguments, in Tate's first minute, he says, I really don't like sequel baiting, but he picked, that's literally what Chris said.
Yeah, right.
He picked the worst sequel bait I've ever seen.
Ultimate sequel bait.
Let alone it being one of a sequel which I don't really care for. I do like the original. And Naomi made a good point with the Terminator stuff by saying that you don't know if Arnold's good at this point. Against the T-1000, obviously they didn't show their colours, so I think Naomi beat it, but it's literally because Tate dug himself in the biggest hole he possibly could.
Yeah.
If you had said, I love sequel baiting, then you would have won. But it's almost like you can't recover from saying that and having that moment. Because I hate sequel baiting.
I will happily concede defeat this one because I love that scene. But seriously, go watch the trailer to Terminator 2. They tell you that Arnie is the good guy.
I know they do.
Really dumb.
2 hours following Kelsey Gandalf comes back. What can we say about trailers these days?
To be honest, I think you can tell he's the good guy anyway because his opening moment is to the song Bad to the Bone, and it's in a very tongue-in-cheek way. So
Yeah.
I think pretty much, guess from that moment. Tom?
Yeah, music cliches are always my
Well,
fave.
there's no point asking me because I know absolutely dick about films. However, I would have picked Tate, mainly due to the fact that I don't think it is at all sequel baity, and I'll explain why. Let's ignore the fact that Back to the Future 2 exists because it is a dreadful movie, and Back to the Future 3 is much better and actually a Back to the Future film. However, I think it's actually very poignant on the sheer fact you don't know where things will lead for them, and these great inventions Doc is making, and I think it ends rather nicely. And you say I mean, it's the same argument you can make with Inception, the spinning top. You don't know what happens afterwards, and I think it leaves a good cliffhanger that really doesn't need a sequel because you've just left it on what is a fabulous bit of cinema in probably one of the best movies ever made. So I would have gone with Tate. And yes, he did dig himself into a massive hole.
Hey, I'm not the biggest. All I say was I'm not the biggest fan of sequel baiting.
But you
However,
picked
this
the
one.
biggest
Okay.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
said sequel bait. That's like saying, like,
Sure.
Super Mario Brothers, let's go with the bit where Daisy comes back or something.
Mind you, Chris
and you
not
were-
liking sequels and yet having, what was it, a Star Wars pick.
Whoa! When did I? When did
No,
I?
he didn't say ever say that.
When have I ever said I hate sequels? When have I ever said that?
You'd rather have films as a singular thing.
Self-contained, but you can still do a sequel to them.
Standalone film
True.
rather than always harping back to the other ones and always making sure that the other ones come forward.
Empire
True,
Strikes
that
Back
is
doesn't pick up directly where the previous one left off. Neither does
Don't
Return of the
mention
Jedi.
Empire again.
See, Tom, we know more about that film than you do.
Oh, God's sake.
Do we have an update on the
Okay,
image?
so that is the end of round 1, and George will now speak.
Yeah, so if you look at the screen, it should be on now. We've got round 2 at the ready, so we have the first quarterfinal. Return of the Jedi versus Back to the Future, Blade Runner versus Wall-E, Jurassic Park versus Terminator 2, and Inception versus Terminator 2. So Terminator 2 is doing very well for itself.
Can I just say?
Finally, all of mine are through. I still can't believe that.
Can I just say that image though of the Vader scene with the red slash through it is absolutely heartbreaking.
I know. I'm actually angry at Tom because that was one of my picks and he took it. I would have traded you Alien.
Tom, do you have any
I
in
want
this
to
round?
and you took that from me.
I have one. Back to
Honestly,
the
and you
Future.
made it lose.
I'm out.
How dare you?
But I'm happy because I went out to Inception and...
I'm sorry, guys. I should just throw my credentials in right now. Honestly, that is embarrassing. I feel embarrassed.
So
really
much so that I wanted to hype your moment because I love
Yeah.
it so much myself.
It's fucking ridiculous. I'll never live that down.
Is the redemption from Return of the Jedi versus you're going to see some real shit from Back to the Future. Are you ready, Darth Vader?
Yeah. Yes, real shit. Okay, the DeLorean. Okay, yeah, absolutely got it. Okay, so your moment is the introduction into this world. This is, on the flip side, this is the culmination. This is the grand finale, and it's a grand finale to one of the greatest heroes in cinema against in my opinion, the pinnacle villain. And it's always great to see a redemption story, but usually in films, it's a very throwaway moment. It's just like, oh, the bad guy turns good. In this moment, you believe it. It's his son he is seeing getting tortured by the most evilest guy in the entire galaxy. And without a single line of dialogue, fuck the Blu-rays, you see it all, and it's a beautiful moment. You've got the greatest lightsaber fight in the entire saga, and with lightsaber fights, it's great to have the spectacle, but you have that emotion behind it. You have a great exchange of dialogue between father and son all the way through, with Luke not wanting to turn to the dark side. With Back to the Future, it is a great moment, but as we said, there's plenty of other moments in the film. There's a lot of other funny lines. It is just kind of a neat moment to see the DeLorean, whereas Star Wars is truly, truly an emotional moment, and it's impossible to well up just at how beautiful the cinematography is, the music, and the characters.
Well played. Tom, go.
Okay, so you're talking about how like the introduction of DeLorean is a good moment, and that's it. I would say it's a perfect setup for the adventure you're going to jet off to, or well, not jet off to. You're going to travel through time to this grandiose adventure, and yes, that moment in Star Wars is particularly good, and I wouldn't argue against it, but I have to.
Don't say that.
It's more for the fact that it's a like you have to watch the previous movies to kind of get to that point in the story, whereas this is pure setup, and it's comical, it's nice and funny, it's clean, and in the introduction of the DeLorean, what can you say against that? It's one of the, well, it might not be it just looks fantastic. The whole scene is crafted brilliantly.
And stop.
Do I get a rebuttal?
Yeah, 30 seconds go.
Return of the Jedi is, in that moment, is one of the best crafted movie scenes ever. And you also have Luke Skywalker, who in that one moment looks at his hand and sees himself, mirrors himself with his father, and turns to and becomes a Jedi. That is his character arc complete in that one moment. Completes Vader's as well. Completes his destiny of overthrowing the Sith. It's a wonderful moment, and I would say that you can still watch that moment on its own in context, because you get that it's father and son fighting against each other, and you get all the emotional from it. It's good versus evil. It's an archetype.
And stop.
Okay, so
And go.
if you're talking subtleties, this is the perfect subtle moment. What you see is I go back to this point in the scene. Doc and Marty standing together, and Marty edging slightly to the side, and Doc just looking at him and then looking at the floor to sort of say, "Come back, we're gonna do this. This is it," and it's all set up from there. I think, in terms of your moment, it is poignant, it is good, but I don't think if you watch it as a moment on its own without seeing Star Wars, you wouldn't get what the fuck was going on. You really
Stop. Okay. I'm not going first this time. I don't want to. Go for it.
I think, Chris, you were kind of winning with that because I love that moment. Like you said, fuck Blu-rays. What was Lucas thinking? But then you were saying like that without anything else, it would still be an amazing moment. While with Chris, you need to know the characters. You need to know Vader and why it's so poignant with Luke as well. His hand and looks at his own father's hand, why he has that connection with it, and why he's like with Back to the Future, you have an amazing moment of a car traveling back in time going 88 miles per hour. Have to go, Tom.
Do you want me to? Yeah. It's really weird because you have like the ultimate setup beginning of a trilogy versus the greatest end ever to a trilogy. It's hard with the arguments because they've each got to talk about Tom's about to speak about the setup, so you can't really go past that. Whereas Chris has spoke about the journey, but to me, by Chris talking about the raw emotions of it, that's a massive favour. And yes, there's context, but by singly saying that the moment Luke looks at his hand, then he sees Vader without his hand and him turning into him to chuck his lightsaber off, that is the moment that kills it. You don't need context to understand that one scene. And the problem with the Back to the Future scene, I don't know if it's because I saw them when I was older, but it's just a car going 88 miles per hour and it's zipping off. There's no mention of the other stuff. Of the I think it's the same scene as the Arabs come in and start shooting them and stuff.
Libyans, let's not.
Libyans. If you're going to talk about Back to the Future, then you're just sitting in the present, and it doesn't make enough of a point. Whereas with Chris, he argued the emotions, the music, and the the drama of everything that's happened. So Chris has got my vote on that because I think he did argue it better and spoke more about the raw emotions of it all. And that's not because I'm meant to be into Star Wars and the Netflix Star Wars thing.
Tate, it's all on you.
Okay. It's another difficult choice because these two are, like George said, it was the start and it's the end, and it's which one do you prefer? I enjoy the Star Wars scene a lot, and I enjoy the Back to the Future scene obviously a lot as well. I mean, I put a Back to the Future pick in my thing, and I could have easily gone for any of the other Back to the Future moments. For looking at iconicness in sci-fi and the greatest sci-fi moment, what sticks with you more is the start of a story, not the end. In some cases, it is the end. The end can be sometimes amazing and phenomenal. Yet when I think of Star Wars, just as a general franchise, I think of the two starships coming onto the screen, and you see one is very, very small and one is absolutely massive. That's what sticks with me. When I think of Back to the Future, I do think of the future, but I also think of like the DeLorean, the introduction of the DeLorean.
You're going spectacle over character.
Time.
Shame on you, Tate.
That's a weird you kind of picking two.
Well, not only that, but if you think about it, the Back to the Future moment is a massive character moment. Doc doesn't know whether that's going to work or not. He is basically committing suicide.
Isn't this based on their arguments? Because you made their argument.
I know. His invention of flight. No, I'm just arguing against what Chris was saying just then.
Yeah, that's fair.
But basically, based on the arguments alone, because your arguments were dead heat, I'm not going to lie, and therefore it does come down to preference of which moment I preferred, and I prefer the Back to the Future moment. You guys fought really well on that one, and I couldn't tear you apart on the argument alone, so I had to go with what scene I preferred.
Wow.
Sorry, Chris.
Okay.
What?
Tom, you're back in it.
Yeah.
You're like, I won that time? What?
You lost with Star Wars, now I lose with Star Wars. It's fair. It's fair game.
Fucking.
I'm surprised that Star Wars hasn't progressed further, honestly.
I know.
Star Wars.
Okay, so Back to the Future goes through into the semi-final. In the second quarter-final, we have Tears in Rain Blade Runner, which I've got, versus Naomi with the Dance in Space from WALL-E.
I'm so glad I don't have to fight this one.
Hey,
This is going to be a
I'll go first.
Aw.
Blade Runner's moment is a phenomenal piece of cinema, not only because of the cinematography, music. I've talked about that last time. I'm going to talk about the empathy between the characters and the impact on the actual story here. As far as science fiction is concerned, it is about pushing boundaries in the relevant fields of science. So it could be traveling through time, it could be battling in space, it could be seeing dinosaurs. It is about our own humanity. How far have we come and how far can we go? We have Roy Batty, who we know is an android. We know that he is like this villain all the way through the film. And yet in this moment, you realize that, hold on, Roy Batty is only 4 years old. He has not been on this planet that long. He just wants freedom. And at the end of the scene, you find out that the freedom he truly wanted was from his existence. And it makes, just in his one speech and the moments before the speech and the moments after the speech where Roy Batty releases the dove, and it's almost like his soul setting free, you realize that who really is in this film? Naomi, go.
You were talking about empathy with the characters. Well, I could go on forever about empathy with Wally and how he's been alone. Essentially, with this Earth, that in Blade Runner, it's still very techy. It's still very what we want a future to be like, except very dark. In Wally, the Earth is no more. All the humans have gone to space and just left the Earth in terror, and that's how the film is set up. Because can we go back to Earth? That's the main argument in the film. But talking about this moment, it's just that kind of comfort that Wally has somebody now. He has Eve. Eve has basically said yes, kind of like I do feel affection to you, because she has that kiss essentially, and it's just a beautiful moment. Yes, Tears and Rain is so brilliant, but this really kind of kicks it out of the park because of just how aggressive it is with characters, and just showing that even if there is a decimated Earth, space.
Okay, my rebuttal is based on the fact that Wally is a brilliant moment. It really is. It's a powerful moment. It's a quiet moment. Yet, when you think of film and cinema in general, let's not look at just these two films alone. Let's think of the entirety of sci-fi cinema. This is the most famous speech because it is so well delivered. It is the most iconic sci-fi moment. It is the greatest sci-fi moment. Wall-E, people don't know that scene and they have seen that film. People don't know that scene, they haven't seen that film. Everyone knows this scene. You'll go.
My rebuttal, if that speech was put into a different film, same kind of context, but if it wasn't a sci-fi film, would it still have the same impact? I believe no. I believe it would have the same impact, but it doesn't necessarily have to be sci-fi for that moment. It's words that shows humanity, but it could be in a different context. This needs space. It needs to show that characters coming together and just showing that beauty in space. I can't think anymore.
That was good. That was a good fight.
That was. Does anyone want to go first on this one, or shall I chip in first?
It's really terrible because I do love that speech, but
I guess I'll go first on this one. I was actually on Naomi's side. I think her opening argument was better than Tate's, but I think she lost it slightly in the last bit, because what I liked, what Naomi focused on was, I mean, we talked about it when I was up against the thing about how Wall-E is that moment where there is no dialogue and you get everything. It's almost like you're just watching a painting come to life. There's no dialogue at all and you get everything from those characters. And I think that Wall-E and Rutger Hauer's character in Blade Runner are very similar characters, in that they do embrace sort of what we take as trivial things in life. Like Wall-E's picking up like little knickknacks from Earth and he loves them. He builds a collection, and you know, Roy's character has built up these collection of memories in his mind. He's only 4 years old. But we're talking about, based on the arguments, I think that Tate hit on the emotion and what that means to the character more, in that he's only been alive for 4 years. Up until this point, he's been a villain. And this is kind of a redemption moment, but we feel that sympathy to him. And ultimately, these are his final moments, and the dove flying into the sky. It is very beautiful, but that is really tough, because I do think Naomi really bought it with that one. And that was a great fight, because it's a tough moment to go up against. But I think I have got to go with Blade Runner just slightly on that one.
Do you want me to, or?
Yeah, go for it, George.
Okay, yeah, Tom's been quiet. it was a good argument. Like I said, it's going to be almost impossible to argue against that Blade Runner moment. Just gave it a good shot, especially when she was rebutting against Tate's stuff. But then Tate saved performance for the second argument, which gives him the edge in this round. So I've got to give it to Tate because he brought more into it than repeat what was said before. Yeah.
As soon as it was like, oh yeah, you're up against Tears and Rain.
It's tough. It is tough. I'd have hated to have been against that. I'd have had literally nothing.
I could win every single round by just saying the speech, couldn't I? By repeating the speech. Tom, I know what you're going to choose anyway because you're just
Based on the arguments, based on the arguments, not personal preference.
Yeah, based on the arguments, I would still have to go with Tate.
Brilliant.
Okay.
That's so nice.
Wow.
Okay. The next battle is Jurassic Park.
You make a mistake one more time.
I hate that film, I know. Versus Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which we haven't actually heard an argument for yet, really.
I did.
To Tom.
I
know you argued. You haven't really had to argue against anything else, have you? It was just kind of you talking about the film.
All right, bitch. I'll bring it. I'll bring it.
Okay, are you guys ready? Naomi's up first.
Naomi,
me,
you're first.
The battle over Terminator is that you have pretty much seen in this film, you know that the future is going to be so bad and it is going to be absolutely terrible, but it's not that big of a surprise. There have been worse that have shown on cinema, whilst this is just so jaw-dropping, essentially, words, because of just how different it is. You've never seen this on cinema. You've never seen dinosaurs be very realistic, and it's only like the BBC thing that does it again. But this is like the first time I've pretty much seen anything like this. You've never really had just sci-fi in a small enclosed space and then being able to actually see it other than like hand-drawn animation. I'm trying my best. Honestly, I am.
And stop. Chris, go.
Okay, what's interesting about these two picks is that you've got a moment that's a sense of wonder, whereas mine's a sense of horror, so it is very difficult to compare the two. But I think that taking technology and the advancements of CGI and everything out of it, I mean, T2, with the T1000 itself was great and groundbreaking technology, but this isn't so much the sense of wonder and the sense of awe at seeing the CGI creation come to life on the big screen for the first time. This is what it does for the character. And it's an absolutely nightmarish moment. And for us as a viewer, we get to see the stakes. I mean, they talk about like this great nuclear war happened and everything like that, and we see the fallout of it. But when we see the moment happening and we see this, this playground and like children are getting murdered and mothers and fathers, just everything's getting wiped out, entire cities, and it blends practical miniatures with the CGI of the explosions. It is beautifully done. And in that one image of just Sarah Connor just banging on the metal fence, she's trying to prevent this happening. And ultimately the setup that it leads to her character, that she goes out of a way to
and stop. And
I'm going to be by saying that yes, it is emotional for the character and it is very shocking. Do we know that exactly goes like that? Do we actually know that it is like that in the future? How do we know it's not just the character's imagination? I mean, going back to Inception, it could just be all in the person's mind. With this, it is in the world that it's in. This is real life. This is actually happening to these people. They are seeing dinosaurs brought back to life.
Chris, go.
Yeah. Okay, yes, it is a dream sequence, but I don't think you could change up a nuclear explosion wiping out the world in any way. This is what the symbolization of that moment, that's a word I just made up, what it does for the character of Sarah Connor. She goes out of her way to prevent it, but ultimately are her actions actually causing what she's trying to change? And it's a fantastic shot on her, just like the skin being blown off her and the skeleton. It's a beautiful moment to the character, and it's a very shocking moment, and I think it's more lasting. Jurassic Park is a great moment, but it's just a sense of wonder, and with today's technology, it changed. Damn it. That was tough. That was really tough.
Especially since I'm going to be fighting for T2 later on.
Tom, do you want to go first?
Yes, I will. I think in terms of arguments, sort of Naomi lost it a bit towards the end, and I think making the case for Jurassic Park, I could have said so much more about its impact, not only in the field of genetics, but also the impact it has on characters who don't necessarily believe in pursuing advancements in science like that. So I think for sheer character alone as well, I'm going to have to go with Chris for his arguments based on his arguments towards Sarah Connor's own sort of path of destruction, as it were.
George?
Am I the decider? Sorry,
No.
I'm phased out. Okay.
No, it's Chris got 1 point.
Based off the arguments between the two of these, they're both very obviously different moments. One's the joy, one's the ending of the world. There's a lot of binary positions in these two. It's hard because I don't really like either moment, which to me turned it into the argument side of things. Sorry, Chris, I'm not. I love
Yeah,
but there's some bits where I was just like, let's take your time there. But I think in terms of iconography, I'd probably give it to Jurassic Park.
Yeah. It was a tough one to argue against, man. Tate, decider falls on you.
If we're looking at the arguments alone, because I definitely have a preferred moment. Funnily enough, the preferred moment is Terminator 2. However, the arguments used here, I'm actually going to go in favor of Jurassic Park. And I'll tell you why. When Naomi was talking about the two films, she did kind of talk about like the fact there was a dream sequence, stuff like that. And yeah, sure, it was a science fiction dream sequence, yet it still kind of counts as a very kind of apocalyptic basic screen like sequence. Chris, if you talked about like how that morally impacted her even more, if you delved into that a lot more, then you would have won that argument cleanly. And likewise with Naomi, you would have won it a lot easier if you talked a lot more about the music and kind of with the awe and stuff like that. But I will go Jurassic Park in the end overall.
I kind of did that argument already in my first one. I didn't want to repeat myself.
You have to repeat yourself again. That's what happened.
Yeah. Well, we base it on the arguments as it goes along. So if you mentioned something in a previous argument, you can bring it back to the forward argument if it suits the way the conversation is going. If that makes sense.
Okay. See, this is my second one. I'm still learning, honestly.
Okay, so the next fight is Inception, the end sequence versus Roses dropping to the floor in Terminator 2. Are you ready, Chris?
No, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
And go.
Okay,
Yay!
So originally I thought about Lasting Impact, and I think that still carries over to this one. The moment in Terminator, for example, as I said, I already fought for that moment, and I love that moment. But it is ultimately just T-1000 and the T-800 initially having their first confrontation. I mean, the whole movie does show their entire confrontation in much more spectacular ways than just this moment in the hallway. The end of Inception is the culmination of the entire ensemble cast, not just Cobb, but he is at the focus of this. And we get to see the finale of what he's been fighting for the whole movie, is to get back to his family. That's why he initially took the job in the first place. And although he gets there, you do feel that rush of emotion, and you're right there with him, and you're so pleased that he got there. But there is that underlying dread, and I think that's what Inception has over the scene in Terminator, which is ultimately just a cool action scene. In Inception, it is that moment, but it also is that niggling doubt in the audience's mind, and that's what makes the end so beautiful.
And go.
You're arguing that this isn't really the most action-packed moment. I argue that it's basically the spark, that hit that makes everything else happen. Because you get two of these amazing Terminators coming at each other for just this one person, and not just a person, just young tween even. But with Inception, it is basically just music with a finale. Everything has happened. Everything is basically just at an end. There is nothing else. We already know everything. With this, we don't know everything. This is the start of a beginning for John Connor in just a new life that's happening from this moment. Everything in Inception has already happened.
Can I give my rebuttal now?
Yes.
I know I'm failing.
Okay, we talk about music and just it's a music video. Music and image is part of cinema, so I don't see how that's an argument. Also, I would argue that most of the plot does happen at this part in Inception because all the rest was just a formality to get to this part, which is Cobb's character arc. This is where his character arc is completed, but also there's the chance that he may never be settled mentally because we never see how the spinning top ends, and that's what's so great about it. Some may see it as a cop-out of an ending, but I think it is the pitch-perfect ending to one of the greatest.
Stop.
Okay. Yes, yeah, I think you kind of faulted that by saying that some see it as a cop-out. In some ways, this isn't a cop-out at all, because this could have been a very bad sequel, but it's not. And it starts off everything that has happened from the last one, but it still stands alone as its own. Inception, you kind of do need everything else to understand why he has the spinning top. And it's satisfaction in the audience. You don't have that. I'm doing terrible at this.
I'm so argumented out right now. It's unreal.
George, do you want to go first?
Bad.
It's a really. I'm trying not to be biased. I want to explain my reasonings, and I will. And I think that it's although I was slagging off in the last round, I can't hide from it. But I'm going to send Inception through. It's just I can't really. It's the ending. It's the whole spinning thing. It's like for fuck's sake, I know what's happening. Whereas Terminator is like something that's going to happen. It's so obvious. So yeah, ish on the arguing side of it. I'm going to leave it for you up, yeah. That sounds so weird.
Yeah. I'm still confused by that.
If I go,
did I win? I won?
Yeah, you've got my back.
Chris,
Okay.
you made the absolute worst choice when you picked this in the rounds. Yeah, I don't know why, but people can't seem to argue properly against it. No offense, Naomi, but you should have gone on full attack mode on that film and that film moment. You argued well for your own film. However, Chris argued for both his film and also argued against your film moment. So I've got to put Chris through. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, that's where I would have gone as well.
Chris, okay. We all agreed at the start that you picked the absolute worst thing to have as your final pick. And yet, people can't argue against it.
Wild card, bitches. I think that's what you got to do. You got to have that moment where it's the underdog.
Your moment. This is bad. This is terrible.
Breaks.
So you get that reference now, Tate. Now you've been watching.
I get that reference. Okay, so George is going to update the bracket. Is it ready yet, or do you need us to fill up?
George, are you alive?
George, are you alive?
But in my internet playing up, I couldn't hear people.
Oh, do you need us to fill whilst you
Yeah, fit in for about 25 seconds.
Okay.
No, wait, no, 30.
We could tell you exactly what's going through to the next round. We got Back to the Future versus Tears in Rain, which I'm dreading. And Tom is probably dreading because Tom has to argue against his favourite sci-fi film moment of all time. Yeah. Which I just like to point out to the viewers. He's going to be arguing against himself, basically.
All based on the
and then we got
all still to play for.
Jurassic Park versus what was it? Inception Time. If we look to the right-hand side of the bracket at the start, that would have been the least likely thing I would have seen.
I thought it was.
I can completely agree with.
So if you see it now, if you look on the right,
I need more popcorn.
you have two of the underdogs. Versus.
Hold on, there's one pick per person.
Yeah.
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 Oh my god.
So you've got and Chris, you near me. So I'm technically the most impartial person at the minute.
Yeah.
In case you guys have got any tactical betting going on, see who you'd rather fight against. Maybe it's a blessing that I cocked up. But yeah, there'll be no tactical betting on my behalf.
Can I just say though, this has been one of the most just unpredictable Battle of the Brackets we've ever had. Like, oh my god, like my pick going through. Empire.
Time making it to the semi-finals.
Yeah.
I didn't think the chest burster.
Finals. What is this?
Yeah, chest burster going out. I can't believe that. It's this so unpredictable. And Empire, man, fucking Empire.
Oh, we don't need to go on about that. What? You mean Empire didn't go through?
No,
shot. Who argued that? Whoever that is
a film that is so highly held up on like IMDb's top 250. It's counted as one of the greatest film sequels of all time.
I think we should retcon that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we should fire the person who did that from the podcast. You know?
Yeah, Chris.
Okay. So
here we go.
Here it is. Me versus Tom.
And here we go.
Tom, you've got first argument. Are you ready?
Not really.
Wait, is the semi-finals when you're allowed to butt in on the rebound?
In the semi-finals, you're allowed to butt in. I'll put it up to a minute on the rebuttal. So you're allowed to butt in at any point and take as much time as you want.
Okay.
Are you ready? So 1 minute argument each first, and then it's basically 2 minutes of just plain back and forth arguing.
Okay.
Okay.
And go.
Right. So in terms of, I talk about sort of the spectacle of the scene and how it works to set up the drama that's about to unfold, but also you get very nuanced character in there with Doc. How at the beginning of the scene he is talking to Marty about how the mall they're doing the experiment at used to all just be trees, and it's sort of a reminiscing moment. And just sort of adds much more depth to his character, to the fact that, you know, everything he's known has basically just gone and vanished away through the recesses of time, and it's only with his experiments can he find solace in his own existence. And I think because his failure before, the fact that his experiments have practically all failed before, he if this doesn't work, he stands in front of the DeLorean to commit suicide.
Talking about like bringing out character moments, this is one of the greatest character moments in cinema. In just one film, you've managed to see a character who, mind you, isn't in the film much, Roy Batty. He really isn't. You look at the runtime and he isn't in there much. And you learn so much about his character just from this one speech, from saving Deckard's life. Like, the entire scene makes you question your own humanity and what it is to be human. And if there isn't anything that's more sci-fi, it's being grounded and realistic. And, like, traveling through time, it's science fiction, it's brilliant. And the fiction side of it, like, really does span out. Yet, with this, it really does pull in that science element. We could have androids living among us within the next, like, 100 years. And this moment makes us question the ethics of it. It makes us question the humanity, the empathy, all of these emotions coming forward. Your moment had a reminiscent moment. This moment was just impactful. And now the 2 minutes of just arguing, let's just go.
Okay, right. I would say the fact that I actually don't see how it's so great. I can't believe I'm saying that. But, you know, he's been hunted down and chased the entirety of the film. And it's only when Deckard is at his mercy that he reveals his desire to live. I mean, surely he could have told Deckard that at any point, or dropped this speech at any point.
Deckard's whole job is to hunt him down and kill him. That is what Deckard's job is.
Yes, but
he is running away from him, but then he has to be the bigger man at the end, and he saves his life. And at that moment, Deckard realizes, oh crap, am I the villain? Am I the person who's just been persecuting these people with these thoughts and feelings, emotions, the things which make people human? And it makes him question himself to say, am I better than these people, or Am I even one of them?
Yeah, but okay. So, but essentially, it's just drama for drama's sake. In the fact that it's a climax to a movie, you need to wrap it up as quickly as possible. So let's throw in some empathy bullshit at the end
please,
of it.
you do not mean that. We all know you don't mean that.
Wait. It could have been developed over the course of the film. It just seems a bit tacked on and thrown in.
That's
Just saying.
because the main focus of the film is on Deckard throughout most of the entire
Actually,
film.
I would
it's
say
still...
he is not the main character of that movie.
Who would
Roy
you say was the
Batty
main character then?
Roy Batty.
Not much in the film. Yes,
he is the star of the movie and the main character. And you know,
let's talk about Back to the Future for a second, because I feel like I'm trying to defend my own film whilst you're attacking mine. I'm just going to go ahead and say that your sequence, yeah, it's good, it's iconic, it's brilliant, it's funny in some parts. Yet there are so many like iconic, brilliant moments in that film that you can pick out. It isn't the greatest moment in sci-fi cinema. This moment in Tears in Rain, the whole speech, the music, everything about it.
But you need context for that moment. You need context.
Is that everything, or is there another 2 minutes?
That was 2 minutes of us straight up arguing.
In the words of George, savage. That entire round.
But I'm gonna go last because is that fair if I'm a decider because I'm not in it? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
George's going last, so Chris and Naomi.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Are you still kind of hurt?
Okay.
Tom, I just want to. I know how painful that was for you.
So I just go first.
That was like an entire different side to Tom I've never seen in my life, because
He is hanging his head in shame.
Yeah.
Has he redeemed himself though? I think that's the question.
The words tacked on and phrases like that, I would never usually hear Tom say that about Blade Runner. I will say that I think that Tom's... it doesn't matter if I believe it or not. This is based on the arguments. Tom, I think your first opening was really weak. I think Tate absolutely just nailed it with all of the, the character moments and the empathy for the character. And I was completely on Tate's side, and that's how I view the film. And then, my God, it was like just a surge, just like an onslaught of aggression towards Blade Runner. And that's what Tate was saying that Naomi needed to do for Inception. And Tom, you did it. You hated a movie that you love, and doing a few MMMs in the past, I know how tough that is. And then the points you were bringing up were making me even question the entire movie as a whole as to whether it is tacked on. I mean, a few moments before that, you've got Rutger Hauer running around after Deckard and his underoos howling like a wolf. And then all of a sudden it's this nice empathy moment, but is it really earned? I would also agree with your point as well that Roy Batty is the main character of that film. Tate, I don't know what happened, because Tears in Rain is a fucking phenomenal movie moment,
it's brilliant.
Tom went full gung-ho on that, and just I think he won that second round, but you won the first round. But I think the ending impact of Tom's argument has lasted with me more, so I'm gonna have to go with Tom on that, but I don't know how that happened.
Fuck.
Tom, we never saw that side of you.
No,
that was hard.
Where was that in Empire? Come on, man.
Who knows what would have happened if you'd had that pick?
Jesus.
Naomi.
Oh gosh, I'm shocked with this, because even I can argue against Tears of Rain, because like I said, I loved it so much. But then just Tom being an absolute savage against it. I mean, it's just saying it's tacked on. That's kind of similar with my argument, just being like it could have been at somewhere else. I should have said if it was there, not there, would the film be any different? And kind of like, but I'm afraid I'm gonna have to go with Tom. I don't know how. He just got it. I don't know how.
Holy crap!
Hashtag
Tom, what have you done?
I feel like crying. I feel like crying.
Moment that we all loved, and then it's just, no.
That's ridiculous.
You went brutal, Tom. I don't know how.
I'd just like to state for the record that Blade Runner is one of my favourite movies of all time, and I had to argue for that against it. And those are words I would never ever normally use for it.
Can I just say, after hearing Tom do that though, we really need to start doing MMMs again, because they're absolutely hilarious.
Joe, I actually think I know what George is going to vote for as well, which is Shocking.
What did I say earlier? Like, you can't say anything bad against that scene, right? And then Tom just dropped it, and I never thought of that. Like, he did chase him around the building. He broke all his fingers. When he grabbed him through the wall, he could have said at any time. So, like, Tom, who I wouldn't think would savage Blade Runner, kind of did something that I would have done, but wouldn't have been able to say about that film. So I'm kind of shocked. So no, it would have been a clean sweep against Blade Runner, which is really,
I know.
that's really weird.
Yeah.
And it's because it was Tom. That's
Yeah.
I've got weird.
Fucking
Like,
hell.
he was fuming when he couldn't have it.
Tom was saving that. Tom was like, he was building up. He was like charging his Super Saiyan mode, and then he just unleashed it on Blade Runner. I can't believe it.
Over 9,000!
I was dreading absolutely that Odyssey tape. I was dreading that because you walked it pretty much the whole way through, and
Or,
it
if
leaves
I
a
was given
sour
five-
taste in my mouth.
If I was given 5 more seconds, I would have pointed out that you really didn't feel that way. But that probably wouldn't have changed the argument because you went full savage on that.
Yeah, so savage.
Okay, so through to the
Gravity.
final, Back to the Future.
Oh Jesus!
Next round, we've got Jurassic Park versus Inception. Are you ready?
I feel like I
Jurassic
am
Park.
now back to Tom. He's giving me energy against Inception.
Yeah, she's given a second chance against you, Chris.
Okay.
I've already given her points on how to take you down. Are you ready? 1 minute each and then 2 minutes of plain arguing. Let's go.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go.
Right, Chris. Does your moment, if it didn't have the music, if the music was put in a different film, it could have just been the same emotional thing. Does your film need the ending that it has? It couldn't necessarily have, it could have had the speed top in a different place. It doesn't necessarily need Hans Zimmer's score with it. It doesn't necessarily, it's just an ending that is basically relying on Hans Zimmer. That is essentially it. This moment, you need it in the film. Have the dinosaurs there to essentially make the film. If you don't have the dinosaurs, you don't have a movie. You don't have Richard Attenborough being there. You don't have everybody just, all their sense of wonder is just taking over everything that they are. Even Jeff Goldblum with his even he's blown away by it. He can't even to dinosaurs.
And
Is
stop.
Your moment.
Whoa,
is Jeff
Chris,
Goldblum-
Chris,
Yeah.
1 minute, go.
Okay,
I was
well,
saying-
we're arguing film music now and its placement in movies, and that's just absolutely blowing my mind. I mean, take the music out of your scene, and you're just seeing a CGI contraption walk across the screen, and people look at it. Music plays an integral part in movies. It plays an integral part in yours. This is my moment. We haven't got to the argument yet. Music plays a big part in yours. It plays a big part in mine. Yours is them looking at a dinosaur and the sense of wonder, and I'm sure the audiences in 1993 and even a good few years after that would still be awestruck. But now, with technology all over the place, I think if someone was watching that scene for the first time, the impact would be lessened. My moment is a character moment. It's for the entire ensemble, but mostly Cobb. And just the music in general, it plays a part in movie. I don't know why we're even entertaining the idea of its placement in a movie. The impact that leaves you afterwards. I mean, with Jurassic Park, the whole thing is that the sense of wonder can become dangerous and they're fleeing from them for the whole movie. This leaves you with that doubt, as the character has, as many characters
And
have in the
stop.
past.
Okay,
No,
2 minutes are on the clock. Go.
I'm just arguing that your moment still heavily relies on Hans Zimmer. You could have any ending with it, and you would still argue that that's it with the music like that. With mine, if you don't have the music, you still get amazing dinosaurs there. You still have that have never been seen before on film. And yes, you said about how if somebody saw it now, they wouldn't think to 2 minutes just to think about like the amazing of it. I say they would, because of the impact that it had still then, still has it now, because you never really see that much dinosaurs. I mean, how many other films do you, aside from the other Jurassic films, do you ever see dinosaurs on screen?
Am I jumping on this one? Is this one where I'm arguing?
You can
Yeah.
jump in whenever
Okay,
you want.
okay. Listen, okay, going back to your point about the music, okay, and how the music's all the way through it, there is actually one moment in this scene which doesn't have music, where the music fades out, and it's the scene where Cobb is coming back into the country at the passport exchange, and it's one of the tensest moments there, because you don't know if he's going to get through, and, you know, you've got the person looking up and down at him on the passport, and it's the look of doubt on his face. And when he finally gets handed that passport, that is the push forward moment in the script, in the film. And that's when the music kicks back in with the guitar. And it's beautifully crafted. Absolutely. And, you know, your scene, you say if you didn't have the...
necessarily need to have that. I mean, you could have just ended the film there, honestly. Did you need to necessarily continue on? Did you necessarily have
yes,
that?
You do, because the entire crux of the movie is questioning whether... It's question.
At the end of the passport scene.
I can shout too.
You could have done the tabletop then. Why does he necessarily have to have the children thing again? Why?
The entire spinning top is the entire crux of the movie for the character and for the theme of the movie.
Why is it necessarily have to be there? Why should it just be at the end of the passport?
Can I get like 10 seconds extra, because, you know...
we'll give you 10 seconds.
I've got to hop on this thing with the music, because you're saying that you'll still have the dinosaur with me. You still have a great character-driven piece and the closure to the main character and his entire arc and his family.
I don't like it when Mummy and Daddy fight.
Will someone think of the children?
I think that's actually, I'm going to go first based off that. Will someone think of the children? That is actually what won me the argument in the end. The fact that, Naomi, you can't really argue against the fact that the music is different, because Jurassic Park's score is phenomenal. Inception's score is phenomenal. Take away the score from both scenes, they're still phenomenal. You can't have that as one of your main arguments as part of the thing. When Chris talked about the idea of the passport, it going silent, and then him going to go see his children being the crux of the film, and the spinning top still putting doubts in your mind on what's happening in the film. I don't know. For Christ's sake, it's the third time in a row I've voted for Inception Time. I don't know how, but I'm going with Inception Time.
Thank you.
I don't know what's happening. I love the moment. It's just I don't think it's the best sci-fi moment. I don't know why it keeps on getting...
I don't think it's the best sci-fi moment. I don't know how this is happening.
Then why did it even get through in the first place? That's what I'm wondering.
I was rushed for time. I was like, literally, you got to pick a moment from the movie, and I had a huge list. I don't know. I love Inception. I love Inception too much. I had to get a moment in there, and George stole my corridor spin moment, so I had to go for the second best thing.
In fact, Tom, it's your turn.
Okay. Right, so you come back to the fact that it's the end of a character journey, and it questions the what is real, and sort of, is Cobb really dreaming still? Has he chosen a dream over reality? In terms of Jurassic Park, you keep coming back to the music thing.
Tom, that I'm not going. Okay, going back to that. That sounded like you were starting to do an episode of film reaction.
Yeah. But I just think you keep coming back to the music thing. I don't think the scene would have worked. Problem is, here's the thing. It's all based on people's arguments and the way you perceive people's arguments, and who shouted the loudest. I think in terms of the presentation and the way it was put forward, I would have to go with Chris's arguments on Inception, and it's what it did for the characters involved in the piece, which is really bad to say because I do think Jurassic Park is much better, but I'll go with Chris's. Yeah.
My God.
Just to let you guys know that
it was
for Inception as well, purely because the music thing is genuinely depressing, because they're my two favorite composers. It's my favorite soundtrack, and it's one of my other favorite films. Then there's still lots of Inception. Chris is very clever bringing the passport scene, because that is a massive moment. The fade out is true, Whereas you just can't use the music, to me, as an anti against it, especially when, to me, the moment itself, the Jurassic Park moment's lost more than Inception actually without the music. But it's not about the music, it's about the moment itself, and Chris won it by talking about the spinning totem. So yeah, you should see on the screen now that I updated this after Tay made his mind up, because obviously at this point I worked out Inception had won. So we're just looking at the final now, that it's Back to the Future versus Inception. Yeah.
Wow.
How did I get here?
I don't think
I have
I
no
expected
idea.
this.
Dreams again.
I'm sorry, but how on earth did Tom get here after his argument for Empire?
In all honesty, I thought the final, not off a cocky point, off the films that were chosen, I thought the final was going to be Blade Runner versus Alien or Star Wars.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Blade Runner versus Luke, I Am Your Father.
Yeah.
That's Tom's fault.
Well, we all know how that turned out.
Now, can you win against the one that we've been shitting on for the last hours or two?
Yeah, that's the question.
Can we quickly, before we go to this final moment, can we all please state what our favorite sci-fi film moment is? I think it'd be interesting to see from the list that we've got here, or even off this list.
Do you want
What
to
is your
go
favorite
back
moment?
up?
Down the list of people.
Do you want me to put it back up?
Yep, go for it.
Hold on. Give me one.
So let's go with George. George, what is your actual favorite sci-fi film moment?
Of all time, my greatest sci-fi moment is the entirety of Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker with the redemption at the end. There is
I'm second that.
that isn't the best moment. I would fight that. Chris beat me to it. I was fuming.
The spinning corridor.
Did Chris say that he was going to match that as well? So that's 2 votes for Vader's redemption.
Well, if I am going to just throw another one out there, that would probably be my number one. But I also love Binary Sunset from Star Wars: A New Hope. It's about 35 seconds long, but that scene just gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. Again, down to the score, John Williams. It's a beautiful scene, really iconic.
Naomi?
I kind of have one on here, one not. I would have said the Alien one. In that one, George, I would have had loads of arguments for that. But because like it's so iconic, but also just how, and even John Hurt repeating it again in Spaceballs, just that there's just a comedic moment, just him going, "Oh no, not again." But yeah, I would have also said obviously when it's. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. Well,
2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
We all know what Tom's is. Tom's is Empire Strikes Back, but he can't talk about it.
No, actually, it's not.
It's his and Rain Blade Runner. We all know it, Tom.
Yeah. It's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does?
Yeah.
It's honestly, well, you know, I'm really unhappy with myself that I had to shit all over it.
And I'm going to match you on that. How on earth? You're a disgrace to all Blade Runner fans. I've got the final cut right in front of me.
Oh.
And you're a disgrace to this film.
But you haven't took the sticker off it, Tate. That's embarrassing.
You haven't opened
No, I haven't. I haven't actually taken it out of the packet yet because I've got a copy downstairs.
It's a collector's item.
It must be missing box.
That belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
For the final, because we've heard you guys argue it like singularly all the way through, we're just going to have a straight up 5 minutes battle on battle, like go balls to the wall, rage against each other as hard as you want.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Fill up the time. 5 minutes
Okay.
of just complete non-stop arguing. You can button at any point, and we won't have any additional seconds added on. If you want to end it, then you can say my argument's ended, and both of you have to agree for it.
Yeah.
If we're going with the finale, we've got Back to the Future going first, as it is on the left-hand side, and we will have Time by Inception going second. So are you guys ready?
Yes.
You will go on
Opening
my
argument.
first whistle. Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, right. In terms of, you know, we're talking about great sci-fi movie moments. When you think of Inception, what do you think of? The hallway fight. You don't think of the ending. In terms of Back to the Future, you think of the. I mean, if you look at the actual bracket thing, the image is so iconic. You can find it on Google. And you know it's everybody knows it. And also, I would argue the fact that it uses more conventional sci-fi iconography in there, which I think adds huge amounts of rewatchability to it than the ending to Time ever will.
Oh, I'm just pitching in now. Yeah.
Just go
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about there's other moments in Inception that are better, like the hallway fight scene, a great piece of spectacle, which was obviously earlier in the arguments. But Back to the Future, there are loads of other moments involving the DeLorean as well. Like, for example, I think of the ending when they're attaching the cable with the lightning bolt. That's so iconic when the theme kicks in there. Inception, man, I'm really struggling on this one, I'm not going to lie. Inception, whilst it may not have as many iconic sort of like moments of sci-fi or iconography as you mentioned, it does still have that quality running through it with a spinning top, and you don't need to have all that iconography shoved into it for it to still be a sci-fi moment. Back to the Future, as we said, is a great moment with the iconic flames, but there's Johnny Be Good, there's all the moments where he's actually in the 50s interacting with his father and Biff and everything like that. So I don't know why this moment in particular is the greatest sci-fi
it's the introduction of probably one of the greatest time machines ever conceived in film history. And what you're going on about in Time is the spinning top bit. Yes, that's exceptional, and it adds so much to the character, but everything before it you meant is kind of fluff, apart from the passport bit, and that's the only bit that's really necessary to sort of hammer home Cobb's reasons for sort of wanting to get back to his children. And I think everything else, the sort of interactions with the other people, just kind of drags on, and it is genuinely fluff and filler. Whereas Back to the Future, you talk about it needs to be there. It genuinely needs to be there to set up everything else about the rest of the movie. And it's one of the greatest designs of a time machine ever. I keep going back to that, but it genuinely is. Nothing matches it.
Well, you were talking this argument came up a while back that my scene isn't needed. It's absolutely needed. It's the ending arc to the character you remove.
Okay, right. That's not exactly what I said. I said that there are moments in it that are needed, but the rest of it is filler. So him walking through the airport, nodding to everybody, it's like, oh, do we really need that?
We've gone through the whole film with these characters. If you didn't have any kind of closure to the characters, you'd be like, wait, where's Tom Hardy's character?
It's not enough closure then, based on the fact that he doesn't interact with it. They're just sort of palmed off to the side.
If we had dialogue, it would be even more dragged out. In your own words, you say it's dragged out. If we had dialogue with everyone, like, thank you, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, for helping me. Thank you, Tom Hardy. It's not needed. The knowing glances and the nods and the fact that we know that they've been on all these jobs before, that's all you need. It's beautiful. And it's not centered on the others. It is centered on Cobb. He is at the focus and he acknowledges everyone, and that's all you need. It breezes past
also, dividing opinion of the spinning top, like... It divides opinion about what the ending actually is, and I think it's just confusing as hell. And
it's not confusing.
It is. It really is.
That's the entire mental shift that the character's been wrestling with throughout the whole film with the spinning top.
But I would argue
that
you don't actually need the spinning top in it. You could just have him interact with his children, and then have the audience make up its mind. It seems a bit the spinning top.
Which is exactly what happens.
Yes, it does. But the spinning top. The spinning top seems a bit on the nose. It seems a bit too on the nose for sort of a great director like Christopher Nolan.
It's a simple. It is what it is. A totem. It's a simple totem that says all this and brings up all these questions and this lasting impact with the audience. I don't think that's on the nose at all. If it was on the nose, we would have got a straight up conclusion and we would have found out what happened. It's the last image you are left with of that movie says just everything it needs to about the film and the journey the character goes through.
Okay, we also go back to music here. What can you
That is 5 minutes on the dot.
Really? Shit.
Yeah, congratulations, guys. I just want to...
I don't know.
I'm going to go first. I'm going to say this simply. Someone finally found a way to argue against Inception Time. Finally. And not only that, but they also backed up their points well. And I have to say, the way that Tom has been arguing in this Battle of the Brackets, it's been just brilliant. You played it just perfectly, Tom. And
This was my plan all along, to get rid of Empire by the sort of outsider wins.
Yeah, the cunning plan, actually.
Tom, I vote for you.
Okay, so that's only one vote. I shouldn't get ahead of myself.
Do you want me to?
That is one vote.
I'll go and
Want me to go for it?
say Tom.
Hello, she said it or what? Am I doing mine?
Yeah, go for yours, Sam.
Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
this is the best moment of all time. Whereas in that scene, Tom didn't defend his moment once in that 5 minutes. Whereas it was attacking Chris's moment, which is what you've got to do. But the fact he didn't talk about his moment, and it was just slagging off the end, and it didn't really make sense to say that you didn't need the spinning top, which Chris is what you do, because that's the entirety of it. So if people are confused, they'd be less confused if there wasn't the spinning top, because 99.9099% of people would know that he wasn't dreaming, whereas the spinning top does leave the ambiguous intended ending. I'm just saying I'm disappointed both your efforts in that argument. Mainly the fact that neither of you spoke about your film's Oscars, which I thought someone might have saved to the end. But I've got to give it to Chris, because I think he spoke about his moment being the better moment more so than Tom's did. Yes, Tom finally attacks Inception. That's because no one else had done it.
Yeah, true.
So my vote actually goes to Chris for that.
Okay.
Mainly,
So Naomi, you have the deciding vote.
Well, you say that defended his film. Well, Chris never actually attacked it, let's be honest. He never actually went in.
oh yeah, I know that. That's why I said I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's just the fact that
Inception, and he didn't have any arguments against Back to the Future. So from that, and thank you, Tom, for doing this, but I'm going to have to side with you, Tom.
So the winner of the best Battle of the Brackets is Tom. Wow. With
You know what?
The
I'm not even
DeLorean
mad.
reveal in Back to the Future.
I'm not even mad.
Has he redeemed himself?
I mean, that final argument was very anticlimactic.
I'm really disappointed with both of you.
It's kind of the bit in a really great trilogy. You have an exciting middle, and then it just kind of peters off at the end.
It was all intentional. It was to simulate that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even mad. What am I saying? Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies ever made. It's one of my favorite from the 80s. I'm a huge 80s fan. It's fantastic. It's iconic. And the fact that Inception even got to the final, the moment I picked from Inception at least, is an absolute travesty to sci-fi. So I'm glad that Back to the Future took it in the end.
I mean, it was really exciting to watch it go through all these rounds.
Yeah.
Like, no one had anything. But no, it's actually I think it's a bit, I feel a bit empty.
It was very
Why? For Tom, this is him winning, but also feeling really upset because he really didn't win.
It's a hollow victory.
But Tom, you get to choose what we battle for in the next round of Battle of Brackets.
Yes.
So, would you please reveal what you are picking?
Okay, so I tossed and turned about this, sort of if I was to win, and it was out of these two choices: best actor to play a superhero in a movie, or best film score of all time, and that's the entire score.
Ooh.
And I think I want to go with my gut, because I think I know people will have really interesting picks about this and pick some of mine as well. I'm going to have to go with scores. So the best film score of all time.
Oh my God.
We can't talk about anything but the music this time.
Can you be talking
my
about
A-levels and my years of being at a music school for 15 years to good use.
can we talk about the soundtrack in the film as well or not?
Yes, can we talk about
yes, you
score
can.
and soundtrack?
Because both of them merge together. You need one to accompany the other. So yes, you can talk about. You can most definitely talk about that. Yeah.
So the next battle of the brackets will be the best film and score soundtrack of all time. I've already got.
That's going to be tough to narrow down for me. That's really going to be tough.
Narrowing it down is.
Oh,
And Tom,
gosh.
you get 4 picks.
Yeah.
Everyone else
Sweet.
gets 3.
Tom gets 4 picks. Everyone else gets 3 for the next round because Tom is the winner.
Fine.
Yep.
Chris, do you want to lead us out?
Yeah, sure. So that was an exciting round. Well, not so much the ending, but that was an exciting round of Battle of the Brackets. I love this one because sci-fi is so broad. Please do drop us a comment. Let us know what some of your favorite sci-fi movie moments are, because there are so many in our actual lists. I'm sure we had tens, like just so many. To whittle it down is always a challenge. But thank you for anyone that stuck with us and watched it all. Lots more coming up on the channel. There'll be more film reviews. Magnificent 7 tomorrow, Tate. I think you are as well, so we'll have reviews out for that.
Yes, I'll try to see it. Yeah.
I went to see Hell or High Water last week, and I'll be getting on a review for that because that's definitely one of my favourite of 2016, and I can't wait to talk about that one. Reaction videos from me along the way. There's loads of stuff coming on the channel, so please do hit that subscribe button. And yeah, that'll do it. I think we're all argumented out right now. We're all still friends.
Don't hate on me too hard.
No. But please leave your hate mail towards Empire in the comments below. But yeah, that'll do it for us. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.